There was an incredibly popular game in the late 80s in the arcades that, like everybody else, I was a huge fan. It was one of the very earliest gun games, and it inspired greats like Terminator 2 and Time Crisis. So let's take a look at this next review.
As a young kid, I was enthralled by console games. Being a big movie fan, I always sought out adventure games and role-playing adventures that meant weeks of dedication in order to see a deep story reach its culmination. But though most of what I loved involved a control pad, I still loved going to the arcade. There were two places I loved as a kid. A small place called Pips in Madison, Connecticut near my home, and when visiting my grandparents in New Hampshire, I'd head over to the now famous Fun Spot near Lake Winnipesaukee. At the arcade, I needed something different than what I got at home. Granted, in the late 80s and early 90s, the arcades were the place for the best graphics and gameplay, but I needed a different kind of experience. Driving and shooting games were my thing. And in the late 80s, there was one game I'd fill with tokens, Operation Wolf. Operation Wolf was a gun game, like many games before, but this release by Taito in 1987 had a bit more to offer. First, the machine gun you held felt realistic. It was the first game I played with recoil action, and it had a bit of weight to the feeling. This game was alive. Operation Wolf was a shooting gallery game set in a Rambo jungle warfare scenario. The perfect Cold War guerrilla covert ops kind of game for this time period. Other than just shooting ducks or targets on screen, this game followed the path of a soldier on a mission to rescue 5 hostages from an enemy concentration camp. Operation Wolf was built on 6 stages: communications setup, jungle, village, ammunition dump, concentration camp, and the airport. The game is a first-person shooter on rails, an early influence for Lethal Enforcers and House of the Dead. You could launch grenades by hitting the button near the gun's barrel and refill ammo by targeting magazines and other power-ups on screen. To keep things interesting, you also had to avoid hitting civilians and medical staff on screen. I have to be honest, not willing to drop massive amounts of dough and wanting to keep tokens available for the inevitable skee-ball game, I was never very good at Operation Wolf. But no matter how poorly I played, it was always a good time firing that gun and blasting nondescript piles of enemy soldiers on screen. Operation Wolf appeared on many different home consoles over the years, but 2 in particular come to mind. Even without light gun support, playing the PC Engine version of the game was very similar to the arcade thanks to impressive graphics and presentation. But I was a big fan of the NES version. I still remember the game costing $55 to $60 when it first released. Funny how expensive many games were back then. Taito eventually released a series of sequels. While Operation Wolf was only a single-player adventure, Operation Thunderbolt in 1988 allowed for 2-player action. They also released Operation Wolf 3 in 1994, and then finally Operation Tiger in 1998. None of these follow-ups match the original's allure and popularity, and you'll have difficulty locating any of these sequels in the wild. Operation Wolf will always be one of the games I remember from the heyday of the arcades, and will still be one of the first games I play when I see it among the sea of classics.